Hello, everyone. Welcome and thank you for joining us for our Workday Chats today. My name is Jennifer Liu, and I'm on the product marketing team here at Workday, and have the honor of being your host for today's discussion around skills-based rewards for talent strategies. I'm thrilled to be joined today by Cristina Goldt from Workday and Kyle Lagunas from Aptitude Research. Cristina, I'll let you introduce yourself first.
Hi, I'm Cristina Goldt. I'm the general manager of our workforce and payroll products here at Workday.
And Kyle.
Hey everybody, Kyle Lagunas, head of strategy and principal analyst at Aptitude Research.
Thank you. So we're very excited to be here today with you. And we know it's really critical for organizations to ensure their people have the right skills in the right roles. But this can be oftentimes easier said than done. And that's why we're really seeing organizations are starting to get creative with their talent strategies to address skill gaps and shortages, like leveraging rewards and incentives to recognize and retain top talent. And that's why we're here today to kind of discuss some of those trends and the potential for skills-based rewards to help you elevate your talent. But before we dive in, I thought it'd be fun to start with a lighthearted question to get to know our speakers. So Kyle and Cristina, I'm going to put you on the spot here for a bit and ask you to share what's a skill inside or outside of work that you've picked up in the past year. And for those joining us today as well, feel free to share your new skills in the chat too. So Kyle, we'll start with you first.
Oh, mine is so nerdy, but I hope that it's something that all of our participants are also doing. I have begun prompt engineering with Gen AI. I love it. It is so interesting to see what these tools are able to do. I know you asked about doing it outside of work. I do have a professional interest in it, but also personal. We actually asked it to put together a travel agenda for 3 days in Porto. And we told it our age and our interests, et cetera. And like it really came up with some great stuff. So yeah.
Oh,
That's really amazing. I really wanted to learn more about your Porto trip in the future too, then. All right,
that's
Cristina.
super cool, Kyle. I'll say mine in terms of skill, it's going to be AI related as well. I mean, that's everywhere, right? That's the hot topic, and I think it's really around really also working with my teams on developing and deploying AI first products, right? And because that is different really than what we've done traditionally. So that's been very exciting, and watching those skill sets grow, and just not to be outdone in terms of I have to add a personal. I'm going to go outside of AI. I've been trying to improve my pickleball skills, so that's what I've been working on.
Everybody plays
Also
pickleball
a
but
hot
me.
thing.
Yeah, it really, really is. It's so fun. I need to get into it.
And who knows, maybe AI is coming to pickleball in the future too.
That will be interesting.
Yes. Something to help with your swing, maybe. All right, let's now turn our attention to what skills kind of mean.
Jennifer, do you have a skill you're going to add?
Oh, yes, great question. So I'm kind of in my professional setting, I'm learning to better improve my delegation skills on the team. So helping kind of help understand. I know it's a little bit boring, but it is an important skill to help us kind of scale some of the learnings on our team as well. And then in my personal life, I'm picking up crocheting, and I believe that is a skill and talent that has yet to be conquered by AI yet, but we'll see what it has in store in the future as well.
All right, crocheting. Who knows?
Yes. All right, now let's turn our attention a little bit to kind of what skills means for the organization as well. So Kyle, what skills or talent-based approaches are you seeing organizations use, and what's been effective?
Yeah, so first of all, I have to apologize. I have a dog that is here begging for pets. I have a leftover peanut butter jelly sandwich on my desk, and she is pretty convinced it's for her. So I'm gonna keep looking down. That's why. But listen, so I'm actually really excited about some of the things that we're seeing in the space. At Aptitude, we just published a study, actually the first day of Rising, and found that there's actually quite a bit going on here. I know we're like in this weird place, both with skills and AI, where we're kind of staring down a trough of disillusionment. But our research is telling us that all of this is still alive and well. In fact, like 2/3 of the companies that we surveyed, it was like 250 companies in North America. 2/3 of them are implementing some sort of skills-based talent strategy. And it actually is the number one driver of transformation in the world of HR today, which is, I think, super duper cool. But then I also see like there are two types of programs that are emerging. There are comprehensive programs, which are like trying to boil the whole ocean. And there are focused programs, which are like really looking at a specific workforce or job type, et cetera. And I thought that this focus programs were going to be the ones having the most impact. It just makes sense, right? Like the more limited and more focused we are, that maybe like the quicker we're going to have some sort of return. But I was astounded that both of these types of programs were having, I mean, like statistically, the same impact in areas like talent retention, attainment of DEI goals, internal mobility goals. So it was like both are working. Like, okay, well, that's super cool. I also found like, although there is pressure from the executive suite to get us more competitive in market, and although there is expectation from business unit leaders to address skills gaps, it was actually HR's desire to innovate itself that is the biggest driver of skills-based talent strategies. Like we have the opportunity to like disrupt ourselves, which is cool, but it's also a double-edged sword, right? I talk about, maybe this is dating me, but I talk about the field of dreams and how HR has this tendency to think that we live in this world where we can go and build something that's really cool and neat and new, and everyone's going to come and play ball. Well, with skills-based talent strategies, that couldn't be further from the truth. In fact, we need to make sure that we are accounting for like the business needs and the expectations of the workforce, both of those things at the same time. And so, yeah, it's an interesting trend that we're tracking here.
Yeah, I mean, Kyle, if you think about it, right, it isn't just if we build it, they will come, right?
Yeah.
And I think what you're sharing here and what you're seeing in your data is there's a huge interest, right? Everybody is interested in thinking about how you tie it to the business, right? It isn't just about, HR creating kind of a new program. It's how they're actually delivering value to the business. And I think the other piece on the transformation side is that we are seeing that shift from the theoretical to the practical, meaning we're really actually figuring out, and as you said, the different approaches to how people are beginning to approach it. Because if I think for a long time it was very theoretical, and people sort of trying to wrap their head around how do I do this in my organization, to now really doing it.
I mean, the practical piece is so important, especially in the environment that we're in now. We're under a lot of pressure to run lean and, but also maintain impact. And yeah, it's basically we can't get this wrong. One thing that I know, Cristina, you and I have been in the world of HR for a while. People are frequently asking what's the difference between skills-based talent strategies and the competency frameworks that we built in the past.
Mm-hmm.
And I actually think that the competency frameworks are the cautionary tale. That was more of the field of dreams. We went over to our little sandbox and played around and came out with some, and I don't want to demean it, but like came back with a huge program, and the business is like, this isn't right. This isn't relevant. So that's what I'm seeing is like the big expectation now is we can't just be introducing more HR stuff.
That's a really good call out. And yeah, I agree with you on that cautionary tale, right? Because yes, you come out with big programs, and how do you keep them going? How do you make them dynamic enough? How do you make it actually work for the business versus saying, here, fit this thing in?
Yeah. This is the new way we're doing things.
Yeah. And this is really an opportunity for HR to have a seat at that table by kind of leading the business with kind of the skills-based approach as well. So speaking of this, I think it's really important to help the audience also understand how HR can start to kind of approach skills to bring value to their employees in the business. Cristina, I know at Workday, we've heard from some customers start to talk about and ask about reward for skills as a way to do so. Can you help the audience understand kind of what exactly is reward for skills and what's that value that it brings for HR employees and also the business too?
Yeah, I mean, if you think about it, right, rewarding for skills, people call that rewarding for skills, paying for skills. I think, as skills become more, prevalent across the organization and using skills for talent and people practices, I think, everybody's interested in, well, is there, how do I take this and make it really work? And part of that is rewarding based on that. And in that sense, so that HR is really thinking about how are they future proofing the business, because then they're making sure that the most critical skills and the skills that the business needs are the ones that are being developed in the organization. That's the skills that you're bringing in from talent acquisition, that you're moving around so that people can grow, or taking from other places, right, to make work. And then for employees, it's the understanding that I can actually, from a development standpoint, these are the things that are important to the organization. This is really what's going to help me grow. And then when we're thinking about rewards, like, is there compensation attached to this? This is how I can actually gain, get a, bigger reward, bigger return for what I'm doing, and it allows them to focus. And then for the business, it's having the right people in the right place at the right time, because you are looking at, these are the skill sets I need to get this done. How do I make sure I have all those skill sets? But it's an interesting, we're in an interesting time, right? Because Kyle, as you were talking about, this is where we're transforming. Businesses are changing and still figuring out, like, how do I approach this and how do I do this? So while we talk to many of our customers and they're very interested in doing this, they're not really sure how to start or what to do. Like, what do I do to get going here? Like, is it that I, for the skills that I earmark, do I pay a premium for them? Do I, is that part of, people who have these skill sets have higher salaries? So there's the operational side of it that needs to get figured out.
I think because it's so complicated, we have to account for more than just the HR stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And the concept of pay for skills is really the WIFM, right? Like, what's in it for me? And when we talk about the need, like, if HR is driving innovation and skills-based strategies, cool. But it is essential with this kind of program that we find that WIFM for our two, like, key partners. We need this to be supported by and relevant to the business. And then we need it to be bought in and engage, like, and adopted by the workforce. We have to account for both of those audiences. What is in it for them? And so, like, the business needs to know, like, is the effort that's involved in this kind of transformation, like, where we're completely shifting, well, not completely, but we're making a major shift in our workforce strategies or our strategic planning. Like, is it going to be worth it? Is this going to have some sort of tangible and significant enough impact to our top and or bottom line that this is going to be worth my time and energy? Like, why? I mean, I'm going business as usual now is fine for me, On the other side, for the workforce itself, like, there has to be more to this than just, like, HR has a new idea about how we can think about, like, talent. Like, if we are going to spend all of the time to boil that ocean and identify the skills that we see will move the business forward, make the business more resilient, help the business enter new markets or verticals, like, great. Then we also need to be connecting that to our workforce strategy. It's like, we have to have a reward for it. There has to be something in it for them besides just this. I don't know if you all have seen this, but this concept of skills equity. And it's like, everybody says that employees want to go somewhere where they learn and grow. And, like, well, yes, but they don't want to just learn and grow for the sake of learning and growing. It's career progression, right?
Mm-hmm.
I want to know that if I develop these skills that you're telling me are important to the business, that I'm going to get rewarded for it, that I'm going to get a new stretch assignment, or that I'm maybe going to get a spot bonus, or maybe I will be front in line for a promotion because I am bought into our workforce strategy in an important way. I just, like, the WIFM can't be understated right now.
Yeah, no, it definitely it goes back to the why of everything that we do, right? And really relating it to the business and to the individual, because that's really when we can intersect those two things, then it's magic.
That's the opportunity in front of us, right?
Yeah,
But
yeah.
I think we're getting too caught up with, I mean, this can be a very big and complicated things.
Yes.
I actually wonder if starting more with the incentive, like what is the
Mhm.
incentive for this besides just HR doing, like, evolve. HR does need to continuously evolve. That's the world we're in. But for
Mhm.
this, there really is a specific opportunity to deliver tangible value to like key partners for us.
Absolutely. And you mentioned, speaking of connecting the dots, how do you think organizations can start to kind of connect those dots back to the business and back to employees around the with them, what's in it for them, right? And what considerations do you think businesses need to make to kind of be ready to kind of do this as well?
Yeah, I mean, so going back to the study that we published at Rising, there was again, I talked about this observation that there were comprehensive programs and focused programs, and Christina, I have to wonder if some of the customers that you are talking to, they get stuck on like, where do I begin? Because there really is just so much opportunity. There's so many use cases. I think that the same with any major transformation initiative or desire to evolve, we really do need to like lean into the problem. Like,
Mhm.
I need to know in my organization, is there a case for a ubiquitous is skills a ubiquitous challenge and opportunity? Do we have skills gaps across the entire organization, or are there areas in our business where skills are especially value or precious, where they're going to make a strategic impact? I think that by getting that sense at the front, that's what's going to tell you, do I need a comprehensive or a focused program? Like, I might assume that my admins don't need a lot of new skills, but then you might find out that with the proliferation of AI applications and features, you might need to get all
Yeah.
your admins extremely AI savvy, right? And that could help reduce thrash and drive productivity, etc. You really need to lean into your own business realities, not operate on your own HR assumptions.
And as you were talking about the study earlier, right? That whether it was a comprehensive approach or a focused approach, I think very interestingly that, essentially there's no right or wrong, right? It doesn't have to be
Right.
perfect. And it really is, as we've been talking about, making that connection between the skills and the business so that people truly understand the why, the value of when we do these things, we are able to achieve this, and then everybody is on board, and you're able to then maybe get to the, as you said, these are the skills that are important, that will be important for our business. And back to the fact that, for HR, that's the deal. Like, how do they make sure that that's all set up right? And then for every individual, and ultimately your business is the one that benefits, because everybody's kind of rowing in the same direction to make sure that you have what you need to get
There
stuff
is like
done.
a completely. There is also like some really like, back to your question, Jennifer, of like, how do we connect the dots? Like, there's really simple stuff here too, or maybe straightforward is the better word. Like, so in a separate study, by the way, did I mention Aptitude is a research company? So in a separate
Well,
study
we
that
love
we
that you have all the data to back this.
yeah, right. Like, so in a separate study we did this year on performance management practices, which, by the way, everybody stop talking about performance, which is mind-boggling to me. But performance management,
Apparently, once you had skills, that took care
oh,
of
you
it.
just need skills. You just need skills in AI. Yeah. But so we found that right at or just under half of companies in, again, we focus on North America, but just under half were actually like leveraging data on skills acquisition and mastery in their performance management processes. It's like, okay, if we know that like two-thirds plus, I think it's actually, yeah, 67% of companies are embarking on or already on their way to skills-based strategies, like, this kind of disconnect is exactly the kind of just, I think, miss or just like blind spot for us in HR that I think could be like pretty quickly resolved if there is a strategic part of the workforce where skills-based strategies is going to move the needle. and we want to drive adoption of like and development of key skills, we should be accounting for that in the performance review of those jobs, right? This gap is inhibiting the adoption and the buy-in at the employee level, and then it undermines that time to value at the business level. And it's like for me sitting here and admittedly in my ivory tower where I can see what's right and what's wrong, right? I'm not having to do the work. But sitting up here, I have to ask, like, if skills-based strategies are so important, then we need to treat them that way. We like the it's incentivizing the development of skills that we need to maintain the business. It can't just be an assumed best practice. It needs to be encouraged and incentivized directly.
Yeah.
Right.
No,
It's not just being an HR pain point. It's about it being also focusing on what the business pain point is, right? And starting with that as well.
Right.
So while we're on that topic, any other advice you might give to organizations? I know a lot of organizations struggle with getting started and thinking about where to get started, right? What advice would you have for those organizations, and how do you think they can, maybe potentially incentivize or start to think about rewarding their workforce for certain skills to kind of maximize their skill strategy and ROI as well? Kyle, I'll jump it to you first, and then Cristina.
I do feel like I'm talking a lot, so I'm happy to yield to Cristina for a moment, but I do have an anecdote to share.
I'll let you go, and then I'll jump in here.
Babe. So in addition to having a research team, like we also have a podcast called Transformation Realness. And I interviewed a couple of HR leaders there earlier this year, talking about specifically how they were incorporating skills-based talent strategies. And for them, they ran like a use case first. They wanted to run a proof of concept. And so they looked at one of their job families, job types that they knew was having an impact. They were a real estate business. They knew that this job had a direct impact on customer experience, like customer retention, and like return business. And so all three of those things are pretty important for real estate, right? I think it was like short-term rentals or something. And what they did at first was they thought that they would just like identify some skills that were going to be important. They're like, okay, these will be good. We'll just start telling people that these are important. It wasn't actually until they started recruiting, specifically assessing for those skills, with new hires, and then also benchmarking that skill level with their existing team. And then, I mean, you said operationalize early, Christina. They really did operationalize around those differentiating skills. And so that becoming part of their performance reviews for new and existing employees, they were assessing and recruiting for it for new hires and operationalized around it. And guess what? They finally saw it starting to move the needle. Whereas before they just said, this is a skill we're going to keep an eye on, that we're going to tell everybody's important. It wasn't until they actually started to build the muscles to drive and develop those skills that they saw some impact. And they, scaled the program for there, but they laser focused on that proof of concept first. And then I think that they really built up a lot of capability as a result.
Yeah, I love that story, and that when you think about it, skills really need to become, or they become, that connective tissue across the life cycle. And when it does happen, then, as you said, you are actually recruiting for the right skills. You're building up the right skills. You're growing and making sure that you have what you need to get stuff done. I love particularly what you were saying about them thinking about certain job profiles, right? And making sure they had the right skills to the job profiles. Because when we think about a job, that's your container for work. And, you're saying, this is what I need to get this work done in the way that we expect it to be done, or in the most optimal way. And, that's sort of also why at Workday here, we've been very focused on the job architecture and how skills apply to jobs in the job architecture to help them understand what are trending skills, what stuff is out there, giving them the information and insight so that they, first of all, generally it's a mess everywhere. And so, kind of getting that into a manner where they can understand it and actually apply it and as you said, operationalize it so that people can, really build on those skills-based talent practices. But I love I do think there is people can be overwhelmed, because
Yeah.
you look at it and you're like, oh, that's like, this is a lot. There's so many things. How do I get started? So I think there is how do you like get down to like, this is super important. And I mean, jobs are a great place to start, because
Yeah.
then you're actually connecting the work with the skills required for the work. And then that's what then, feeds your talent acquisition. It feeds your, career and development and growth. As you said, should be tied to performance, because you are trying to build up these skill sets, and it's a shifting mindset also.
Yeah.
I think for both HR, for both business leaders, and for the individual to make that connection as to, okay, this is the thing I need to focus on.
I mean, that's what's just so funny to me, though, is I'm laughing because it's like a new dimension of integrated talent management. Remember integrated talent
Oh
management?
yeah, yep.
You know? Because in that CASA example, like they were looking at things in one point or in
Mhm.
isolation. What are the skills that are important for this job? Well, let's advertise for those skills. But then if there was no assessment of the current team that had like those skills for the current team, if there's no development of that skill internally, if they weren't actually like managing like expectations around those like capability in those skills, like it was just one thing.
Yeah.
Like skills, it has to be a thread you tie through the employee lifecycle, through the talent strategy. It can't be just a TA initiative or a learning initiative, right? And I think that's where it is that's why there's so much interest, because there's so much
Mhm.
value. But
Yes.
it's like, if I like it, where do we start? It's like, start with the pain and then resource the pain. I don't know. It gets complicated fast, but I feel like you can think about just layering on top of like the initial pain point. We're going to solve for what's right in front of us, and then we're going to make sure that we have a holistic strategy throughout the rest of that talent life cycle too.
I think you're right. It can get complicated pretty fast, but I think if you try to start simple and address the pain points, then you building on it, then it's not so hard, right? I think the other two is I think we're very fortunate. Skills are not a new thing, right? But the technology in terms of how we apply it has changed dramatically, right? And so
Yeah.
that really, being able to take advantage of that to help us, do some of the things that we hadn't been able to do.
Oh, the
That's
heavy
great.
lift, right,
Yeah.
Jennifer? Like, I mean,
Yep.
you're looking at these different stories to tell about the technology that's available. The heavy lift that goes into like aggregating skills data, standardizing skills data,
Yeah, you
translating
need a
it from
skills
one.
cloud.
Yep, exactly.
You
Yes.
can take that plug, but that's what people get daunted with too, is like, how do I make sense of all of this? And
Yeah.
technology as an enablement layer is more pronounced now than it has been before.
Right. Especially now with AI orchestration as well. It's there's a lot of opportunity for customers and organizations to start to kind of utilize skills in a lot of different ways. But I love what you said, Kyle, earlier about you not having to boil the ocean to do so, right? It's about being mindful and finding out kind of where that pain point is in the business to kind of get started as well. All right, so on to the last and final question. Looking ahead, what is the potential you see for organizations with rewarding for skills? And where are you seeing kind of that interest come from in terms of customers or the market around reward for skills as well? We can shift things up a little bit and start with you, Cristina, first.
All right. I think there's so much opportunity here, right? And a lot of potential, and maybe in different areas where this really allows the business to drive greater alignment. If we understand what's important, what skills we need to get stuff done, I think we can be more focused, more effective. When you think about employees, being able to motivate them to build skill sets, to understand what's important to the organization so that they're moving in that same direction. So again, that alignment that you see there, which also builds internal mobility, which I think is great, right? That's what keeps people at organizations, when they feel like they're learning and growing and getting to try different things. But it also helps the business, right? Because you're making sure you have the right people in the right roles. And I would say one more thing I'll throw in there is when we look at skills as a way to match people to opportunity, right, and match people to work, it really I believe really contributes to a more equitable workplace, right, where you're using
Absolutely.
the experience or what they've learned or what they have to be able to reward them and to be able to put them in roles.
Right. It's a way to give employees transparency and insights into kind of the skills that they have, and maybe
Exactly.
even skills that they might not have been aware of as well.
Right.
I
All
think
right.
one thing that comes to mind, Christina, as you're talking, is there's no better way to litmus test, to stress test whether something is relevant to the business than trying to get it to pay for it. So, you know what I
That's
mean?
very true, right?
It's a great point.
If I can't convince the business to give out bonuses or, adjust like account and comp adjustments, like for skills mastery and attainment of what we have aligned on at the strategic level, are going to, again, move the business forward, make the business more resilient, help it enter new markets, like whatever the business case is. If it is not strong enough, we're not going to get the literal moolah
Yeah.
buy-in. And
No,
and so
that
that's
you're
something.
exactly right. That really is your proof point that is
Mhm.
something that you should be doing.
And if you get too much pushback, then I might tell you that maybe you're doing more, you're over prioritizing HR's needs and expectations,
Mhm.
and you aren't actually connected enough to the business. I mean, it's easy for me to say here my ivory tower, but the business pays for the things that the business
Right.
needs. Like how
Right.
often does the business go rogue on us and bring in,
Let the money do the talking.
Yeah.
all of a
So
sudden
it's
they'll pay
building those
for
business
fancy
acumen
consulting.
skills.
Yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely.
absolutely.
I mean, literally,
Absolutely.
I'm really impressed. I've been to a lot of conferences this year, and I've been so impressed by the number of talent and HR leaders who know the business impact of their programs. And I think that having that, they're not just talking about cool ideas in market. They're talking about how they are able to move the business forward, save millions of dollars,
Mhm.
avoid risky situation. Like there
Yep.
is tangible impact. So I think that's just the best way to make sure that HR is not innovating in a vacuum here, is make sure that they are like, yeah, I'll pay for this.
All right, it all goes back to the business. Well, thank you both for sharing your insights, and thank you to the audience for joining us as well. If you would like a deep dive into other talent and skills trends, please be sure to check out our Intelligent Intentional Talent Transformation Report in partnership with Kyle from Aptitude Research. It's linked in the comments below. We'd also love to hear from you in the comments. So tell us what you thought of the discussion today, and be sure to join us next month for our next Workday Chats as well. Thank you and bye-bye.